VR is VER, it's called VER in Dutch, and it's the Dutch Electric Vehicle Drivers Association. And we think it's very important in the electrification of our society to have a strong voice of consumers because, we started being a serious electrical country in, let's say, 2009. And if you only leave it to the policymakers and the industry, they go one side. And I think it's very important to have the practical experience of EV drivers to make things more perfect and to make things more appropriate for the consumers. If you varies as association, we have at this moment we have about more than 12,000 members, and there's different reasons for people to join our association. First of all, we lobby. We lobby a lot on a national level, regional level, local level, because sometimes policymakers have no clue what's really happening, with the feet on the ground. So you really need to be there for the interests of the EV driver. So it's the lobby. We also have got an EV help desk where, because if you are an EV driver or if you want to drive an EV, there's so much questions to ask, like, okay, where do I plug? How does it work? One phase, through two phase, three phase. There's loads of vocabulary that you don't understand. What with if I have a caravan? How can I pull it? Or if I want to go on a holiday, what do I do? Where do I charge? So we've got this EV help desk for that sort of questions, and we get so many questions on that field. And also the community, because we've got a big Facebook community as well. And you just want to, if you drive electric, most of the people, we do that in surveys, we see that in research, that people that drive electric also change their other sustainable behavior. So it's good in the community to know that you're not the only one and that you are enforced and powered by other people that also have the same attitudes. We focus on normal cars, like this is our main focus of interest, just the normal car. But also sometimes motorbikes, that's also a part of our organization. We don't focus on heavy duty because that's a completely different ballgame. And we are very much interested in light electric vehicles, like two-wheelers, three-wheelers, but we still don't have, we are an association of volunteers. We still don't have someone to take over that job, but we are very keen on having also that sort of vehicles under our association. We do research every year about who is the EV driver, and we also ask them, why do you like EVs so much? And I think most of the time they answer, it's the silence. It's so silent. If you drive an EV, you have no clue. If you're used to like an ICE car, it's silent, it's smooth. That's what people like. They like the sort of the luxury of, the simpleness and the luxury of the EV cars. And I think they also, yeah, they like the feeling of driving green. That's what they like. If we ask them and most of that's some of the things that we really find spectacular. About 90% of the people that have an EV right now, they say, I'm never going to go back to ICE cars, never. So there is something really special. And this is not only the Dutch research, we are part of sort of an international network, and it's everywhere. And that's really interesting. What they don't like about EVs, it's not about not liking it, but it's about, if you drive an EV, what's difficult is how to get into the charging. How do you do that? Where do you charge? Sort of range anxiety. That's in the first weeks of driving electric. That is something that you're sort of worried about going on holiday. But that's about it. It's a very comfortable way of driving. Biking is, we as FAIR, we are an EV association, but our goal is not to have as many cars on the road. We think transport should be sustainable. And most of the time, that's biking, it's walking, it's using public transport. But, it's not realistic to say that this is all the modalities we need. People need cars. So if they choose for a car, we say choose for a sustainable car. So this is how and I think also, like, it's not that people need to buy a car, because we're also a big fan of sharing cars. I think we should just look at the way we do our transportation to look at it in a different way. Um, we we try to influence EV policies, and you have to do it. You know, we are a country where loads of parties work together. It's the so-called Polder model, and we believe in it. So we are part of all sorts of working groups, decision maker groups, um, all sorts of groups to sort of join the discussion, the national, regional, local discussions on policy making. So that's what we join them. So we hope to be able to part of the big narrative. And what we also do is we try to sort of proactively approach the media, because we think, you know, the media, the consumer also needs to know what's happening, because the consumer also influences the politics. So there's sort of two sides to that one. I think the greatest hurdle at this moment is maybe that our government doesn't have a vision on what role should EVs play. We all want to follow the Paris Agreement, and we know that, you know, we have to drive electric. We have to sell electric cars by 2030. So at this moment, but there's no good policy. And what makes it really difficult at this moment is the energy crisis. So what you see is that policies of the government are slowing down. There's no incentives anymore. Electric driving is getting more expensive. So for people that want to buy an electric car, which is already a bit more expensive than a normal ICE car, for them, you know, if there's no incentives, it's difficult to make the decision. And at this moment, the real problem are those energy prices, that if you've got an electric car, normally you would be able to charge quite cheaply. But this is not the case anymore. And since the government is incentivizing, or at least helping the gasoline prices and not helping the electricity prices, so there's an extra hurdle for EV driving. And what we know, there's big discussions on transparency of charging prices as well. For example, if you live in Utrecht, you pay almost twice as much on the street charging your car than if you live in Rotterdam, and no one knows the explanation. So there is so much work to be done. We do a couple of things. We've got our EV help desk, so people can ask questions about whatever they want, about policies, incentives, charging, going on a holiday with your car. So it's really giving knowledge. We also make this facts and fables booklet, because what we see in the market, that there's still so many wrong narratives about EVs. People just, you know, there's this. It's always difficult to sort of fight fake news, and and especially for EV drivers, if they're on a holiday or if they're on a birthday party, people always ask them, but what about the battery? It's not clean, and if you use the energy, it's all gray energy. So people get asked questions, and we know that if people want to sort of be in favor of electric driving, you want to hear it from your peers, and if your peers don't have the good questions, then it's difficult. So we sort of try to inform people about facts and fables on electric driving. And we've got this big Facebook community where people sort of, you know, with their own experience, exchange thoughts with other people. That is a good question. I think there's VER is part of the Global EV Alliance, and the Global EV Alliance is a platform where associations all over the world work together. So at this moment, there's about 60 associations from 33 countries, mostly the US, Europe, and European countries. But we see more and more countries from Asian countries, African countries join the association, and we think it's good to sort of help them help them with the experience we already had, because if you know, in the European countries, we are sometimes a couple of steps further, but we also made our mistakes. And if you sort of make a clear playbook of what you did, what we did, and share that with other associations, they can learn from the mistakes we made. So for them, that could be a kickstart for their electrification. And I think we should also be, you know, respectful, because all what you see in the Global EV Alliance, there's loads of things that you learn from each other, like policies that work, that are proven to work. But sometimes it's also local situations that are different. So with respect to local situations, we can learn from policies that work. I think at this moment there's three hurdles. One of them is that our Dutch government, doesn't have a clear vision on how they want to make the Paris Agreement goals feasible. So at this moment, we know with these policies and tax incentives, we're not going to get our goals. So we warn the government. We say, if you keep on doing it like this, it's not going to work. So this is one of the hurdles, I think, the clear vision. The other one is we are in this energy crisis, and what you see is that gasoline prices are so much more subsidized at this moment than electricity prices. So for the EV drivers, driving a car is all of a sudden so much more expensive, and combined with less incentives, that makes people sort of hesitant to use and to go into EVs, and that's what we don't want at this moment of the development. We need to have so much more EVs on the road at this moment. And I think third of the question is that people, it's complicated, energy prices and the energy grid, but electric cars are being seen as part of the problem of energy grid problems. But we think with a battery in the cars and with all the bidirectional charging developments going on, the V2X situation at this moment, we think that EV can be part of the solution. And I think there should be much more information and much more talks with EV drivers about this. When are EV drivers willing to let their battery being used by the energy grid, and on what sort of circumstances? And I think those three things are really important to discuss with the government at this time. I think it's a fair point. EVs are expensive at this moment. We see new models coming into the market which are cheaper, but at this moment it's like a sort of luxury good. But what we see in our association, we see lots of people that also buy secondhand cars, and it's not that they're just rich people, not at all. And we think EV should be there for all, because we all benefit from clean cars. If you look at big cities, the big reasons why I think we should have EVs in the city is that we all want to live in clean cities. So I think in that way we all benefit from the electric revolution. But I also think there should be more focus on car sharing, like sort of other modalities that everyone can use. And I think, but it's a wrong narrative that EVs are only there for the rich, because I think that's not the case anymore. I think I think you make things better if you've got all the parties on the table. So if you think about something that you want to change, it's not enough to have the industry and the policymakers there, but you also need to have the consumers, the end consumers, that can help perfect the way that you look at it. One example is, for example, is that big charging companies, they think about how you can charge, and they make their own apps, and all the charging companies have got their own apps. So from the point of view from the charging company, you think it's very clear, because we've got one app and you can look at it as being an EV driver. But if you sit in the chair of the EV driver, you've got 300 apps and you don't know what to choose from. So on that part, it's really difficult if every charging provider, for example, has got its own app. So that's why we think it's important to focus on, okay, what is it if you look at, because the EV driver is the one who has to invest in a car and who has to drive electric. And if they don't use it, or if it's too complicated, you can electrify whatever you want, but then people are not going to buy the electric cars. And one of the other things is that we are focusing on is transparency of prices. If you go to the gasoline station, you know exactly what you pay. Because you would never go, for example, to a supermarket, buy product, and only know what you pay after you've paid, for example. And if we as EV drivers don't focus on that all the time, then it's not going to be there, because we know it's a sort of difficult problem for charging providers, but they need to solve it. So I think it's important to get electrification really to make electrification really possible. VER is part of the Global EV Alliance, and VER is one of the initiators of this Global EV Alliance because we believe in international cooperation. We're a small country. If we go abroad, we are easily in Germany, in France, in Belgium, and we need to have the focus on charging there as well. Because if people want to invest in an EV, they want to know that they can go on their holiday destination as well. So those are one of the reasons that we really find it important to be part of that GIVA.